Total Wine has thousands of wines to savor and pairings for every flavor. Spirits line the shelves. Gifts are easy with helpful elves. A wonderland to explore. Total Wine and more. Drink responsibly. B21.
What's up, y'all? It's Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show on Social Suplex Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show. Listener discretion is advised at all times.
Hello and thank you once again for downloading and listening to another episode of the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, part of the Social Suplex Podcast Network. My name is Clive and I am joined by my co-host Ricky. A good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I'm okay. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm excited for the task at hand tonight. For those listening, this is the second episode of potentially 3 episodes of the December Madness that we're calling it, where we have pitted 64 wrestlers against each other. Rance helped us out last week to whittle that down to 32. And we have some esteemed guests with us tonight to help us whittle that down to 16 and then keep going until we have the official best wrestler of the last decade as voted by this group of just professional opinionists. I know that's not a word, but I'm going to put it out there so it goes into the zeitgeist. So we're just having a little bit of fun over the festive period, nothing too serious, but based off last week's episode, tempers might rise. So I can't guarantee it'll be a happy listen all round.
Well, let's just save some time and name Chris Hero right now.
Oh. The joy is that these guys haven't heard last week's episode, so they've not been able to see what the rounds are this time, Ricky. So there's going to be some shock omissions and shock additions as well.
I think so. I mean, well, introduce our guest first and foremost.
Yeah, because I want to start talking about it. I was like, I don't want to jump in and be like, yo, it's me, the young boy.
Yeah, I was trying to wait, Clive, and let you, properly introduce us.
I'm trying to get my shit in.
You have heard their podcast before, haven't you? There's never any proper introductions, but if you've heard these voices, you'll know who they are. If not, allow me to introduce the ace of podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style, Josh and Jeremy. Gentlemen, how are you this afternoon in Florida?
Oh, it's evening time for us. It's dark out.
How are you this evening in Florida?
Man,
I'm doing good.
I'm doing really good. I'm excited. Like you guys mentioned, we didn't get to hear the last episode that you guys and Rance did. I think that's dropping, tomorrow probably?
Yes, it's dropping on the 16th.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, we're going into this thing blind, so I'm really kind of excited to, get in some friendly debate with you guys.
Debate. We'll leave it at debate and see what happens. So, Ricky, have you still got the old spreadsheet?
I won't lie to you. I have the I've got this week's matchups. I don't know what I've done with last week's. I may have deleted it.
Oh wow.
So, we're off to a good start.
I kind of still don't believe him because he has a track record for this.
No. I think in my notes that I wrote for all the matchups from last week, I then deleted it and started to write this week's matchups on it.
Okay.
So, there we go.
Are you working or are you shooting?
No, I'm serious.
Why would you do that?
I have no idea.
You guys worked so hard on this.
I have no idea.
Well,
I mean, we can just start on the last 32, and when people actually listen to it, they'll realise who was dropped out and who wasn't.
To be honest, I don't even remember who got nominated, but
Neither do I.
But I'm anticipating tomorrow's episode when it drops, so I can kind of play catch up. You know, it'll be like time travel.
Yeah.
Right, not a good start, but here we go. Right, so the first matchup we have in the round of 32. This is a pretty damn good one to start us off. We have Jon Moxley versus the ace himself, Tanahashi.
Oh
so
my God.
Before we continue, just to lay down obviously the ground rules that we had last week, we factor in, you know, match quality, different like characters, character arc, kayfabe, all of those things. We factor all those into your decision making. And obviously the guys haven't yet heard the last week's podcast. One of the matchups, and it won't come as a spoiler, was, what was it? Was it not Brock Lesnar versus, I think it was it Kairi Sane, I think? And I remember when we first recorded with Kish, Josh wanted to see like Io Shirai versus Brock Lesnar, just like all total chaos. And I think we got that. But yeah, first matchup, Moxley versus Tanahashi, and I will let one of the Kiss guys kick us off if they wish.
And what criteria are we looking at when it comes to this head-to-head round? So
it would be just the quality of matches they've been involved in, how they've been like title reigns kayfabe wise. If you could factor in things like, individuals main evented WrestleMania X amount of times, or Wrestle Kingdom X amount of times. This person's won so many big matches or so many big feuds and so many big titles. Generally, couple all those things into your thinking. And I think for us, the way we looked at it was really the deciding factor could come down to like the quality of matches per se, to really separate people who are like neck and neck.
Gotcha. So you definitely want to have your Google machine nearby in case you don't remember everything about these guys.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, I mean, I guess, we can start with Moxley, a.k.a. Dean Ambrose. I would say he had an early run in the beginning of the decade with, like, Dragon Gate USA, CZW, that sort of thing. But really started to kind of make his mark, once the Shield debuted. There was a brief run in FCW and all that sort of stuff, but I think where he made his mark was in WWE for the most part. My opinion on Dean Ambrose is that most of his best work was done prior to him winning the title. Like, everything leading up to that Brock Lesnar feud, he was like right on the cusp of superstardom, and then later the year he got the title. I think he had several title reigns, but most of the really good work he did was like when he first broke out, the feud with Seth Rollins, the work as the Shield, everything of that nature. And then I think it would be an easy pick for me to say Tanahashi in this case, but this past year that Jon Moxley had as the AEW champion really kind of set him over the edge in a big way. So that'd kind of be like my recollection of like Dean Ambrose's body of work.
And so when we're talking about as far as like the decade, are we talking 2009 to 2019?
Well, I would say 10 to
this year.
Very moment. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. For me in this matchup, I would have to go with the ace Hiroshi Tanahashi. When you just look back at the past 10 years for Tanahashi, he's a guy that he's been on top of his promotion for the last 10 years. Entering his fifth IWGP title reign in 2011. He's already kind of the ace of the promotion towards the beginning of the decade, having a lot of big matches and rivalries and several Wrestle Kingdom main events. The guy that saved the promotion from the Dark Ages and really kind of catapulted New Japan to the forefront And I love John Moxley. I love also one of my favorites, but kind of like Young Boy said, a lot of his best work was done before the title reign in 2016. Even some of the stuff that he was doing in the FCW, which was supposed to build to the Mick Foley feud that never happened, which was really good stuff. But and also he had a really strong past year, like Josh mentioned, as AEW World Champion, being a huge draw, being in several main events there. But if you're looking at the cumulative decade in accolades, match ratings, match quality, storylines, I think it has to be Tanahashi.
I mean, Tanahashi headlined, let's see, what Wrestle Kingdom are we coming up on?
This will 15 is what we're coming up on.
Okay, and Wrestle Kingdom 5 was the first one for the decade. I think he headlined like 8 of those shows, won on like 7 of them. I'm just, spitballing off the top of my head. He had a record-breaking IWGP title run in that time. Won match of the year multiple times with Okada. The IC title reign, the matches with Naito. I mean, like, it's kind of crazy, his resume.
Yeah. He also had the 2018, was it? G1 with Ibushi.
Yeah, winning the G1.
He won two G1s.
And the Nakamura one as well, was that 2015, 14?
Yes.
I think I would probably most likely be picking Tanahashi as well. I think for me the difference, Moxley had a period of about 12 months or so, especially towards the end of his time in WWE, where it's just like he done next to nothing other than wear like a gas mask. And I think that to me is the final stamp where I'll say no, I'll go with Tanahashi, because like I said, there was a long stretch there where he really didn't do too much. This past year, probably 18 months if you factor in, obviously he was involved in the G1 as well. But the stuff he's done in AEW, like, I think brings the decision a little closer. But yeah, I'm going to go with Tanahashi as well. I think his overall work in this past decade stands out just that little bit more than Moxley's.
Well, there's obviously 3 votes for Tanahashi, so whatever I decide doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter what your vote is.
That's not true. Every vote counts.
I need to soundbite that.
Count all the votes.
Aye.
Stop the fraud.
This man Clive's trying to stop the vote. Stop the count.
Yep, barricading the doors.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so it looks like Moxley won. There's a lot of fraud on this round. Let's move on.
I'm the one that's typing it up here, so...
I'm also typing it up.
Well, you deleted it last time.
Yeah, I won't.
I'll type it to keep your battery fresh.
That's fine. So, for each matchup, see if there seems to be a definitive winner even before talking about it. We don't really need to get into it, and I think this may well fall under that category. Second matchup, we have Seth Rollins taking on the New Day.
Collectively, the entire New Day?
Yep.
Yes. So, what I said last time when we recorded was the New Day generally you look at title runs, etc. But I feel like Kofi's certainly the build up to the match with Daniel Bryan. I feel like that should be factored into when you're talking about New Day because they were so heavily involved in that because obviously they win that gauntlet match in order to get Kofi the title shot. So I think that can be factored into it. But even taking that into consideration, my pick would be Seth.
I would agree. Because I think when you talk about Seth, you're also talking about his work in the Shield. And I think though the period of the peak of the Shield is much shorter than the peak of the New Day, it just tracks much higher. They had better match quality and output. Where I think there's a difference between these two, I think it really comes down to how you feel about the longevity of their role as being a top drawing act and how much emphasis you put on that. Because I think when it comes down to like match quality, it's going to be Seth Rollins. I think his work in 2015, specifically before the knee injury, is like really top notch. but he's had a lot of down periods where I don't really think the New Day as a collective group have really had any down periods in this entire decade. They've pretty much been a steady force when it comes to merch, when it comes to popularity, but I don't think they have the kind of in-ring work output or character growth and development that Seth Rollins does, or even like feuds.
And also too with Seth, you got to kind of look at the beginning of the decade where he's still in Ring of Honor. He wins the ROH Championship against Austin Aries. He's having big matches against guys like Austin Aries and Daniel Bryan, and really broke out and got on WWE's radar from his ROH run, that ROH title run, into developmental. And then you look at FCW, FCW being here in Tampa. I've seen a lot of FCW and kind of kept up what was going on there. He was the FCW 15 champion, the FCW champion. I think he might have been the FCW tag team champion as well. So he was kind of like the face of FCW, winning that the title there, having feuds with Moxley there and Roman Reigns, and then trying to transitioning over into NXT, being the first NXT champion, kind of being the face of that brand as well. So you kept covering all the developmental, the indie stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's the Tyler Black stuff with like Age of the Fall and like all his Ring of Honor work, the stuff with Bryan Danielson, Davey Richards. All those matches were like as good or better than some of the stuff he did in WWE, which is kind of crazy.
If you want to quantify it as well with WrestleMania moments, I know Kofi had his, but the New Day's biggest WrestleMania moment would be taking stunners from Austin.
Yeah. As a group, yeah. I mean, unless, of course, you're factoring in the Kofi moment, which I think is the bigger moment overall.
I mean, yeah, probably.
I agree.
You've got the heist of the century in 2015.
Right. Yeah, that's not far off.
I wasn't a massive fan of it, but it was a pretty well received Triple H match, and also taking on Brock single-handedly and beating him. So he has more, if we're looking at it from a kayfabe side of things, he's had a lot more bigger moments at WrestleMania. But I don't think that's such a clear-cut decision, Ricky. I mean, I think there's a good shout for New Day, but I think, personally, I'm biased. I would be going for Seth.
Yeah, it's tough when you're trying to lump all three guys together, because I think Kofi might have a better chance by himself. You look back to Kofi's career, also going back to FCW and kind of ECW, that run at the beginning there, and then he had several great IC and US title runs leading up to where he's at right now.
But don't forget the most important thing, Consequences Creed, his work
in TNA.
That's really important.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. I think Seth Rollins takes this pretty handily. I think it's close, but I do think it's Seth.
Mm-hmm.
Next matchup. So this is number 3. We have Zack Sabre Jr. taking on Minoru Suzuki.
Oh man, Battle of Suzuki.
That is a tough one.
Oh man.
Well, I guess I'll start. I think the big dilemma here is how much emphasis you put on Zach's work prior to getting to New Japan, which is kind of where he's made his home. Because the majority of his career throughout the decade was like spent in Noah, Rev Pro, Progress,
Evolve,
PWG, and those were kind of like his main home territories. And then obviously he just worked everywhere. Like he was an indie guy, but one of the top indie guys, and he was having fantastic matches. He won titles in almost all those companies, WXW as well, multiple. I think he won a Bola. I think he won
he won a bunch of tournaments.
16 Carat. So that stuff's all incredible. And then, when you tack on the work he's done in New Japan, it puts him over the edge. But then you look at Suzuki, and he's someone that's been doing incredible work in New Japan almost the entire decade, not to mention the fact that he's also a freelancer, so he's done work in All Japan, Noah. He had an incredible run in Noah when they went on their excursion over there, and he was the top draw in the company for a year. It's a tough one. It really depends on what you put more of the emphasis on. I think Oh, man, it's really tough.
You got Suzuki coming back to New Japan at the end of 2010, jumping into the Yuji Nagata rivalry at Wrestle Kingdom 5, which was an awesome match. And just from there, G1 climaxes, IC runs, never runs, IWGP title matches against Okada.
I mean, he's worked with the who's who when it comes to New Japan throughout the decade. So, and then, like I mentioned, that Noah run, which really kind of can't be forgotten. Plus, he has done a lot of excursion work, going to like the UK, coming to the US, doing stuff like that. But it's like, do you put more emphasis on like the output that Zach had, but on a lower level, with a lot of guys that became future stars and signees in the major leagues, or do you put more emphasis on like Suzuki-gun, leading his faction, and all the work that he did in a major company along the way? Yep. It's a really, really tough call, honestly.
I'm just thinking, because there is a really solid case for both of them, but in terms of how they've ended 2020, while there's nothing against Suzuki, Zack Sabre Jr. is on the rise in terms of where he could go. So I'm kind of wavering towards him, but I'm also bearing in mind the body of work that Suzuki's put in.
One thing I will say, Suzuki's had a career renaissance. This has been one of his best years of his entire career. And he's 52 years old, and that's insane.
Didn't he have, I want to say it was 2018, an absolute banger with Okada? I can't remember the show. Was it but it was Out in the Rain?
Yeah, that was for his 30th anniversary show.
Yeah.
I'm putting my hat in the ring and I'm going for Suzuki.
Yeah, I think I'm going Suzuki as well. Just those big stages at Wrestle Kingdom, just bigger platform than Zach, and I guess you can say bigger draw as far as crowd wise. So I don't know. I guess I'm going Suzuki.
I think I'm going to go Suzuki too. I think you can make a clear argument for either guy, and I think you'd be splitting hairs. But a lot of Zach's work was just not seen by as many people, even if they were in very respectable places. I mean, it's no secret, like, a lot less people see PWG, a lot less people see Rev Pro, as opposed to, the G1s that Suzuki's been doing all these years, the title reigns he's had in these major companies. I think I've got to go Suzuki, just based off that pure fact alone. It's tough. This game's hard.
Right, so we'll go here. Right. Matchup number 4. I think I know how this is going to go. We have Tessa Blanchard taking on Will Ospreay.
Oh man, I think this one's a no-brainer.
Do we really need to talk about it?
I don't really think we need to. I mean,
right, so I'll just pencil Tessa in, shall I?
I mean, she got a strong mind, the strongest mind she's ever known. But I think we got to go with the aerial assassin here.
Yep.
And Tessa Blanchard's the toilet bowl assassin.
Oh, don't.
Oh, did I just remind you there what that was?
That is pretty horrific. Right, next up, this is quite interesting. We have, so I'll pencil in Ospreay. Next matchup, we have Shibata taking on Becky Lynch.
Interesting matchup here.
Who did Becky beat to get here?
This was, who did she beat again? Because I didn't want Becky to get through. Hold on, let me see. I actually reached out to Rich as we were recording this.
She got through.
I reached out to Rich, and he
surprisingly...
Was it Finn?
Mm-hmm.
You guys had Becky Lynch beat Finn Balor.
I didn't.
Crazy.
That is pretty crazy.
So it's surprisingly, because as it was going on, because I thought, right, I wasn't sure if we were going to get a definitive answer here. I reached out to Rich, and I think he actually says, I think he went with Becky as well.
Yeah, he would.
He said it was very tough. So he says, Balor smokes her in matches, although Becky was hotter than Finn ever was for a point, but he'll say this, Finn should have been the bigger star.
Oh, I don't know that that's true. Well, maybe it's true. But, I don't know. When the Bullet Club first became a thing, I don't know about that.
That was my reasons. Anyway.
Because I actually think at this point, I might even put, if I had Finn against Shibata, I might put Finn through, honestly.
Yeah.
But for me, and I hate to be that guy, but I think it's easy for Shibata.
Yeah, I'm going Shibata as well.
And most of my reasons,
I will join in because I didn't want her through in the first place.
Okay, then.
I think Becky's really, really great. I think she became so popular that it became popular to hate on her. And she's a fantastic talent, and she's had great matches, but she's never had as many great matches as Shibata, nowhere near the level. I know it's not always about matches, but in this case, it's so much more that it would be hard for me to compare the two.
I voted again.
Yep. So
this next one.
Is there anybody like that in I guess the closest person, and because I know you guys might not be as familiar with the work, but the closest guy I've always in WWE that I've ever sort of related to Shibata is Cesaro, someone who just goes hard, no matter what match it is, no matter where they're on the card. They're just always fantastic, and it kind of defies logic. That's kind of how Shibata was.
You could maybe compare him to Dragunov, but he's not been there for long.
Yes, not enough yet. Ilya is awesome, though.
Yeah.
Right, next matchup. This is interesting.
Oh.
Bang. Yes, we have Kevin Owens taking on Nakamura.
Oh, man.
That is a really tough one.
Oh, man. This is a tough one. You think Kevin Steen / Kevin Owens, start of the decade, he's still in Ring of Honor, having that incredible run. And then obviously eventually goes over to NXT, has the great run there, the feud with Sami Zayn kind of being the top heel there in that promotion. I think the thing that hurts Kevin Owens is the inconsistency on the main roster.
With the booking?
Yeah, he comes in, has a hot feud with John Cena with the U.S. title, and then it's just up and down from there. He had the Universal title run, then he's getting squashed by Goldberg. And it's just been, he's face, heel.
Okay, but you can make the exact same argument for Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah, true.
And
I wouldn't say Nakamura's booking has been inconsistent. I just think it's been consistently
shit.
Yeah.
That's consistently mediocre compared to Kevin Owens, so I'm just going to put my foot in and go for Kevin Owens just now, based on, I know they both had amazing careers before WWE, before main roster, but I think Kevin Owens' peaks have been better than Nakamura's peaks in Raw and SmackDown, so I'm going for Kevin.
In WWE, that's for sure the case. The one argument you would have for Nakamura is how high his peak was in New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're really honest about it, because I'm basing it just off the decade, I have to go Kevin Owens too, because Nakamura was really strong from 2013 to 2015, 16.
Yeah.
You're basically talking about a 3-year run. The earlier part of the decade, now he was still having fantastic matches, but he hadn't found his character yet. They had to send him to Mexico. All that stuff. There were some lackluster feuds, some bad matches, in big spots. I think overall, if you would have asked me this 4 years ago, I wouldn't be saying this, but in 2020, based off how everything's gone over the last 4 or 5 years, it's probably Kevin Owens.
This is a an upset for the bookies, this one, I think. Well, we'll see.
Well, I have to be honest. I can't.
Of course.
So Young Boy's going Owens. Clive's going Owens. Where are you going, Ricky?
Yeah, I'm going Owens as well. I think pre, like, what we're talking, like 2015 or so, even if Nakamura's peak was slightly better, I think the NXT stuff, I don't think there's too much difference, but I think certainly how they've been booked and perceived and come across in some of the matches as well on the main roster from 2016 onwards, I think that's probably the deciding factor for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously outvoted here.
Nakamura.
I think I'm going Nakamura. I mean, even that 2016-2017, he was still in NXT, and also the incredible Sami Zayn match, and he was kind of one of the faces of the promotion throughout his time there. But I totally understand you guys going with Owens here.
My whole thing with Nakamura in NXT is like it was good, but it never got better than the day one he came in. After that, it was completely downhill.
Yeah.
But I do empathize with Jeremy because I know you guys might not have seen it, but like his last like 2 years in New Japan, he was as big or as hot as anybody has ever been in the company. And it's so high of a peak that you would probably I could see him winning this on another day, but I think I do have to go Owens just based off the fact that it's a decade based argument.
Okay.
Probably people listening mad right now.
Yep. Throwing
Next
the phones
matchup.
against the wall.
We have Pentagon taking on Ishimori.
Oh, who did Ishimori beat to get through?
Can't remember.
I think it was somebody. I think it was someone pretty shit, if I'm honest.
There'd be Chris Hero or someone.
It could have been.
No, I would have voted Chris Hero. So this is Ishimori against who was it again?
Penta L0M.
Huh. Well, I mean, if I'm being totally honest, most of my exposure to Ishimori is based off New Japan stuff, not so much the Noah work, where I think the majority of the decade really lies. But I'm very familiar with Pentagon's work all around the world, and I mean, multiple-time world champion in major companies. I don't know if he can definitely go, but I don't know if he can go at the same level Ishimori's been able to, but in the same token, I feel pretty confident it's Pentagon Jr. I'm surprised Ishimori got through.
Yeah, I'm also voting for Pentagon here. Again, like Josh, most of my exposure to Ishimori has been his New Japan stuff and what he's done in Impact. I'm definitely more exposed to Pentagon off the Lucha Underground stuff, his Impact run, some of the popular matches that come out of CMLL and AAA, and obviously now in AEW. And I think Pentagon, he just has that star charisma. He was one of the key stars of that Lucha Underground program.
Exactly.
And that is something Ishimori's been lacking.
Right. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, obviously there was the Noah stuff. I guess he was a top junior there, but I feel like Pentagon has been a guy that's been the face of like promotions, like you mentioned, Josh, had multiple title runs, and kind of a lot of promotions will build around him. He's a guy that indie promotions and international promotions would try to bring in for these big dream matches. You know, Josh and I, we were at New Orleans WrestleMania weekend, and literally him and Phoenix were like match car running from show to show.
Yeah.
Because they were literally booked on pretty much everything throughout the whole weekend.
Yeah, they usually have there's usually 4 blocks of shows throughout the day, like a morning, afternoon, or, noontime, afternoon, and then evening time. Actually, there's usually 5 blocks.
Yeah.
And he was working 2 shows each block. He would be the opener for one show, get in a car, and then drive and be the main event for the other show. So they were doing 8-10 matches a day.
Yeah.
Just crazy. But I mean, the other thing too is Ishimori was at the top. It's not his fault, but he was at the top when Noah was at the bottom. So I think that also plays a big factor in it.
we lose connection?
I don't know.
No, okay, right, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clive, I know you're going Pentagon, so I think that's full house right there. Okay, here we go. A couple of tasty ones coming up now. Next matchup, we have Ishii taking on John Cena.
Oh.
So,
Oh my god.
Right. Clive, I'm going to ask a question.
Okay.
So obviously, people would have heard the first episode. Now, the matchup John Cena had in the first round was John Cena versus the Young Bucks.
Yeah, I mean,
was the right pick made?
I think so.
Yeah, if it's Cena versus Young Bucks, then I think you have to go Cena.
It's tough, but I definitely think John Cena should have won that.
Do you think he should win this one?
I do.
Okay.
And you know what? It's really unfortunate because the story, one of the big stories, and you know, maybe it's not, maybe he's happy, but for fans of him, the story for them, especially here in the States, is that this guy, Ishii, never gets his just due because every year he goes out and has maybe as many or more great matches than any other wrestler in the world, period. And he does it consistently year after year, and he never gets serious contention for Wrestler of the Year. He never gets serious contention for Hall of Fame votes or anything like that. But he's literally having if you were to tell me who has had the most great matches in the decade consistently, it's Ishii. Period. There is nobody. I mean, more than Daniel Bryan, more than Will Ospreay, more than anybody. But the problem is, he's never been pushed to the top level or been given the chance to really excel beyond where he's been slotted. So it's sort of just almost all of his argument is based off the strength of his in-ring work, and that's it. And now you're putting him up against someone who Cena's no slouch. Cena has great matches all the time, but someone who's been literally at the top the entire decade, nothing but big matches, nothing but world titles and accolades, and
right.
It's hard to overcome that.
Beginning of the decade, you had the CM Punk feud, which brought a lot of fans back into wrestling. You had the Rock feud, those two big WrestleMania matches, multiple times.
You want your holiday roast to be perfect, so start at Safeway. We offer the highest quality USDA choice beef, and we can custom cut it just the way you like. Pick up your bone-in prime rib roast today, whole in the bag for only $4.47 per pound with Just For You digital download. And earn up to 6 times reward points this season with Safeway. The more you spend, the more rewards you earn. Get this great deal on Just For You on the Safeway app. Some limits may apply. Safeway. Fresh foods, local flavors.
Who are you texting?
My therapist.
You text with your therapist?
Text, video chat, call. Yep.
That sounds too easy. How did you find her?
I just went to betterhelp.com/save. She's a licensed therapist and it's all online. I connect when it's convenient for me and don't waste time driving anywhere. Plus, it's affordable.
I wonder if I should try it.
It's great to talk to someone in confidence. She's helped me sort out quite a few things. And right now you save 10% off the first month when you go through betterhelp.com/save.
BetterHelp.com/save. Got it.
WWE World Champion. You have the U.S. title run with the John Cena Open Challenge towards the middle of the decade. It's hard not to go with Cena. Big draw on the biggest stage, in the biggest promotion, literally on top the whole decade. It's hard not to go with him.
Yep. I'm quite happy to go with him as well.
Oh, this next one. I think this next one's going to be quite polarising. Here we go. We have Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan.
Oh man.
Look, I think nothing in this past decade, 7 years or so, was it 2013 Brock came back? Nothing that Brock done is comparable to the Yes Movement. That sort of 10, 11 months or so, building up, or from when it started up until when he had to kind of relinquish the title. But I think Daniel Bryan's sort of like decade can almost be broken up into like 3 periods. You had the whole Yes movement, his return, and the what was his body? The last gimmick, I was going to say Captain America, but the one with the vegan
Captain Planet.
Captain Planet. That's it.
You've got Marvel on the brain, Ricky. That's what that is.
And I think the problem with Brock is it's not Brock himself. It's a lot of his all of his matches are pretty much the exact same. And those matches are just fine. There's nothing wrong with those matches, but we know how they're going to play out. But I think the thing with Brock is that when that whole Suplex City thing started, it was the same thing over and over and over again. But I think it's really, really difficult because if you want to look at WrestleMania moments and some of the matches you've been involved in and the title reigns, etc., like, the guy's phenomenal. And I know Josh is a big fan of him. Like, he's one of, if not, but I think he's in the conversation of being like one of the best pure in-ring wrestlers you'll ever see. Like, when he's at his absolute best.
Yeah.
I think, and I've always said it, I think he just doesn't get enough credit for when he sells. I think when he sells, I think he can make other opponents look really, really credible. I'm going to put it out to you guys because I'm really struggling with this pick. And I'm kind of hoping I don't need to make a pick.
I think you actually made a pretty compelling argument for both guys. I mean, here's the thing. A lot of this tournament kind of just depends on the randomness of how the matchups played out. And in any other scenario, I could see Brock going very, very far. But unfortunately, he's going up against Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, who I think in this past decade is probably, in my opinion, the absolute best North American wrestler of the entire decade. And like you mentioned, nothing Brock's done can outweigh, the Yes movement at its peak, but then the full body of his work altogether. I mean, Brock, for every great, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, match that, Finn Balor match, there's one equally bad Big Show or Braun Strowman or what have you match that kind of takes away from all the goodwill that he's kind of done. Then there's also the fact that it's like, in kayfabe, he's got a lot of title runs that went a long time, but he also was gone for a lot of them.
Yep.
Yeah. And with Bryan, I mean, the beginning of the decade is he's coming into developmental in FCW, which eventually leads to him going on the NXT game show, having that great match with Jericho. And just from that point, you just see, like, no matter what they give Daniel Bryan, he gets it over. They had him as this kind of nerdy geek, girls don't like him kind of thing, and that whole NXT thing, and they really kind of try to make him out as a geek because he was the indie darling and fans wanted him to win. But he got over on the NXT game show. He got over as U.S. champion. He got over doing the very beginning of the Yes stuff with the world title stuff and feuding with Big Show and Mark Henry, which then leads to him getting over as a babyface in the matches with Cena, and the whole rivalry with the Authority that lead to the Yes movement. So I think, if you look from the whole decade, like, Daniel Bryan can prove that he can get anything over. He's had phenomenal matches on big stages, big moments, big merchandise draw. Yeah, I'm going Bryan.
The other thing is, I mean, I could gush about Daniel Bryan all day, literally. Like, not only are you factoring in his WWE work, but, like, you also have to take a look at the time when he got fired and was on the indies for 6 months, maybe not even that long.
Yeah, it was a couple of months, I think.
But, like, while he was there, he was having, like, all these bangers with all these Dragon Gate guys and all these Evolve guys, and, like, was having match of the year contenders with, like, Naruki Doi, Shingo Takagi, people like that. And then, came back, and he showed that he can literally succeed at anything, You give him a comedy act, he's going to get it over. You give him a tag team, he's going to get it over. You give him, a short match in an empty arena, he's going to get it done. You give him a world title match, at WrestleMania. Like, I actually think there's no comparison. I think it is tough just because of the big names and the notoriety, but when you really boil it down, I think it's easily Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
He also had an absolute banger against CM Punk. I just can't remember which pay-per-view it was again.
Over the Limit.
It was Over the Limit.
2012.
That match is awesome. He's had so many awesome matches in WWE.
Yeah.
Even the match with Drew Gulak earlier this year was excellent.
AJ Styles a few months ago.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Drew Gulak. Yeah, that was like That was right before the pandemic. It was awesome.
There's no surprises here, Ricky. I think you know who I'm going to go for.
Brock Lesnar.
Yes. No, Daniel Bryan all the way for me.
Without Ricky's infamous catchphrase.
Go for it, Ricky.
Fuck Brock Lesnar. Oh no, sorry. Fuck Brock.
Yes.
I never ever say his full name. Fuck Brock. Right. Next matchup. This is another good one. We have Naito versus AJ Styles.
Ooh, this is another tough one.
It is. That's very tough.
I mean, I think if we're going back, like, even just 3 or 4 years, like 06, I think there's a clear and definitive winner. Because I think whenever I think of AJ Styles, I just automatically think of whatever it was known as TNA, I think it was back then. I just think of the X Division. I think of Joe, Daniels, all those guys, and AJ. But, like, we still saw some of the stuff with Kurt. He still had some stuff with the Aces and Eights. He beat Okada, didn't he, in his very first match in New Japan when he was there for a year.
I think I've got to go AJ Styles in this one.
I think that 2016, or his first year or year and a half or so in WWE as well.
First year was exceptional.
Yep.
First 2 years, really.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was the WWE Wrestler of the Year both years. Naito, with him, he started the decade as part of No Limit, if I'm recalling correctly, and then after that kind of broke off, was the Stardust Genius, which he had a lot of great matches, but that just failed to kind of connect with the crowd. And then when he came back from that excursion, started LIJ, that sort of was the beginning of his ascent. And I do think it depends on who you talk to here, because one thing that is going to be lost to some people is the magnitude of star that Naito is in Japan. He's the biggest star in Japan and has been since 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
And bigger than Tanahashi, bigger than Okada in terms of love and popularity. It is Daniel Bryan-esque. But when I look at the full decade, I think I gotta go AJ Styles. I don't know that AJ has ever been as over in any place that it actually mattered as Naito has ever been. And that's the truth. And Naito has had match of the year candidates. He's been the wrestler of the year multiple years in the decade. So this is a really, really, really tough one. This is actually really tough, but I think I still got to go AJ Styles based off the strength of his body of work from this past decade.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to go with the phenomenal one here. You look back at the beginning of the decade, he's still in TNA, still kind of in the heavyweight title scene, feuding with guys like Joe and Rob Van Dam, doing the Fortune stuff, and still kind of being a top guy in that promotion up until 2014, where he leaves, and that's when he goes to New Japan. At 2014, leaving TNA, a lot of people want him to see him in WWE, but WWE had no interest in him. So he goes to New Japan, literally revitalizes his career, has this incredible run in New Japan, gets back on WWE's radar, taking over the Bullet Club, which also leads into him going to ROH as well. So he's having, bangers in ROH and New Japan. Also, he did some indie shots in between that run too, and Rev Pro and some other international stuff. And then, yeah, you mentioned the WWE run, also the huge Royal Rumble moment, with his debut, and then going on from there, the awesome title matches of John Cena, the matches with Roman Reigns. And clearly AJ's a guy that Vince loves. We hear, Vince really loves AJ, and you see that in the booking and how he's always towards the top of the booking. So I'm going to go with AJ.
Funny thing, they don't get enough credit for it, but those two guys had a lot of chemistry and had really great matches against each other in Japan.
Should be noted as well that AJ Styles went straight to the main roster, which during that time was, and even now is, unheard of.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think that had more to do with the political play from getting him from New Japan in general.
Yeah,
good enough. Yep.
And Impact was also at play there too. They're trying to get him back also.
That's a tough one, man. That's a really, 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 really tough one.
The Puro Elitists are not going to like that we picked AJ.
Rance will be pissed as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Naito is that's Rance's boy.
Next up, we have Austin Aries versus Tommaso Ciampa.
Who did both of them beat to get?
Cannot remember.
Oh my god.
Oh man, I don't know.
I mean, for me, I think I would have to lean more towards a double here.
I knew it.
I mean, if you just look at his run throughout the decade, so at the end of the decade, he's back in Ring of Honor. He has the world title run there towards Ring of Honor. He's doing stuff in Dragon Gate USA. He has another run in Impact. He's doing X Division stuff.
He won the world title too.
Right, in
the Jeff Hardy match, which was that match is really great. The ladder match.
Yeah. So yeah, he has several championship reigns in 2013, 2015 in Impact. Then from there, he gets the WWE run. It wasn't as great as it probably could have been.
The Pac feud's good though.
Yeah,
yes, that was really good.
A really good I Quit match, I think, or submission match.
I remember them having 3 matches. I remember them being on the pre-show for WrestleMania.
Yeah. And then also towards the end of the decade, you have him going back to Impact. He's doing the belt collector gimmick.
Yeah.
He literally has 5 or 6 companies world titles all at the same time.
He had the SWS title in Australia. He had the grand title as well as the world title in Impact. That was 3, and then he had the Defiant / What Culture title as well as IPW or something like that.
Yeah.
So he had 3 titles on 3 different he had 5 titles on 3 different continents. But to be fair, none of those were major companies when that was happening.
That's true.
And then he had a really great final run in Impact, but then it ended,
sour.
Yeah, really sour. And then he kind of hasn't done anything since then. He's been announced to go places, and then it's kind of fallen apart. But I mean, yeah, he's had a really, really strong decade. I think I'd probably agree too, and I think I'd probably go A-double over Tommaso Ciampa. It's just, here's the thing. It's very similar to some of the other arguments we've made earlier in the show. Is just his body of work. He didn't obviously reach the heights that Ciampa has reached in WWE, but it is tough when you start thinking about DIY and everything.
Because Ciampa's run is mainly from 2015. It's the last 5 years of the decade.
With a whole year cut out for the neck surgery and everything.
Right. But before NXT, I mean, he was just bouncing all over the indies. He had very inconsistent booking in Ring of Honor.
He never really made a name for himself. He was a name.
Right.
But he was one of those, he's a name that exists out there, but you don't really know who he is. He didn't really have a home. Most of his decade, the strength of his decade is completely WWE. But I will say this, his peak's much higher in this decade than
peak's huge.
Yeah, I think that's what sways me. I think his peak was that much higher than Austin Aries, and I think even that year he was out, we were all still talking about him and thinking of him. That's how much, that's how over he was, and how hated he was at that point. And like you say, his stuff as a singles competitor were great, but the stuff with DIY, those matches were absolutely outstanding, especially the ones with Revival / FTR. I'm going to go Ciampa here. And I have a feeling that this is the first time we're going to have to use one of Richie's picks here as a deciding factor.
Independent adjudicator. And Jeremy, you give a really, really strong argument for A-double. That's quite a list of accomplishments, but he did not spit on a man's wedding ring. So I'm going for Ciampa as much as I can on this tournament. So, Ricky, it's time to bring in the independent adjudicators vote for this one.
Well, I'm thinking about it. I'm like trying to like reason it out. It's like, so he had like the last 5 years, basically 4. I think what hurts Ciampa, in my opinion, is like, how long has he been back?
That's for this year?
Just over a year now.
Yeah.
I think that everything was really good until he lost the title, and after he lost the title, it's been pretty bad. I didn't like the rehash that they did with him and Gargano. I really thought the match that him and Gargano had, the cinematic match, was very bad.
It's really, I think it just came at bad timing, to be honest, because you had the Boneyard and...
Oh no, that match is bad.
No, I just mean the Fire. They were huge. They were larger than life.
Right.
You had the Firefly Funhouse and the Boneyard. So I think anything after that, especially a week or so after the fact, you're thinking, no matter what your opinion of the first two, it's not much compared to it, you know. So I wanted the Gargano rehash to go well, but just I was not interested in that match.
I think the reality is they've kind of run out of stories for him since he's dropped Goldie. That was kind of his big story, and since then they've kind of run out of things for him. But I'll say this: when I say his peak is higher, what I mean is his peak was higher in the sense of like popularity, interest, heel work. But I don't mean in-ring wise. His peak has never been as high in this decade as A-doubles was. Not even close. And that's where I think neither one of them have a perfect argument, because most of Aries' big work was in smaller companies, but it was at a really, really, really high level that has to be acknowledged. But I think it's it's a tough one. So what are we gonna do if I'm going A-double?
They have Rich's pick.
We have Richie's pick.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to do that in this one, because I think I'm too influenced based off the strength of the decade for Austin Aries, which is surprising me because I don't really like the guy.
Great professional wrestler.
Yep, Rich went with Ciampa.
Yes.
I'm fine with that. I was on the fence with this one anyways.
Love you,
Next
Rich.
match. I like this next match. We have Okada versus Asuka.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Now, Asuka's had a great decade, but it's a no contest, really.
Sometimes I want to say that for some of these, but I feel like that's not interesting audio.
No, I know.
No, we can do that.
I mean, Asuka's had an incredible decade, but it's Kazuchika.
It's Okada.
Right. Okada's is arguably being the
that
best.
should just be the argument moving forward for Okada. Next match, Okada versus whoever. It's Okada. Like, let's move forward.
I will say this: her NXT Women's title reign is very similar to Okada's really long title reign that he had, for that almost 2 years.
Our NXT stuff was fantastic.
Oh, so good.
Even the match with Charlotte at WrestleMania was excellent. Wrong person win, but that aside, that match was fantastic. But for long stretches at times on the quote unquote main roster, she's kind of done next to nothing at times. And really, I think she's only become really interesting again this year.
Yeah, I've got to go Kazuchika Okada.
Yeah, hands down.
Next up, we have Johnny Gargano versus Roman Reigns.
Oh my God.
Man.
Bro, I don't know, man.
So again, I think this one also depends on kind of who you're asking, what you're looking at. And if you look at Johnny Gargano, he's a guy who spent probably the beginning part of the decade on the independent scene, doing like Chikara, Evolve, that kind of scene, Dragon Gate USA, until he gets to NXT, and also that's the start of the DIY run, which also this leads into an incredible run for him, having these incredible takeover matches. He's now 3-time North American champion. He's been the NXT champion. Then it's the big dog. It's Roman Reigns, the guy that they've been wanting to push and be the face of the promotion.
Yeah, again, it comes down to what do you care most. Here's something. Now, if you consider NXT a completely separate entity from WWE, that's one thing. But if you kind of branch all of WWE under one umbrella, which I think I do, I used to not, but once they started expanding into like 205, NXT UK, and then they had so many different brands, it's like, okay, it's just all WWE at this point,
Right.
Yep.
No wrestler ever in the history of WWE has ever had as many highly rated matches ever. Not Bret Hart, not Shawn Michaels, not Eddie Guerrero, nobody, Kurt Angle, nobody. Nobody's had as many highly rated matches in the history of WWE as Johnny Gargano. That's the truth. So and it's in a really short period of time too, but his booking has sometimes just been all over the fucking place. Like, it's really, he's not, like, even today, like, a really big star in NXT, which is kind of crazy. There's been times where he's been super hot. He was, like, the heart and soul of NXT. He doesn't feel like that anymore. And then you got Roman, and it's like Roman right now at this time is doing the best career work he has ever done. And he's got a really, really, really strong resume with some really bad, inconsistent booking at different times. But he's also been, like, the guy in the company for the past decade.
Yeah.
Johnny Gargano's Aleister Black match, that is my favourite ever NXT match. And I'll always hold it in high regard. I'll hold the majority of the Ciampa program in high regard.
Yes.
But I wasn't a fan of and I know they were highly rated, but the Adam Cole stuff, especially the WrestleMania match.
So good.
No, it's just...
They are so good.
Dude, we were in the building live.
Those matches are
for
that's fair enough.
Match.
But I was just sitting there watching specifically the WrestleMania weekend one, just blank, stoic.
What?
Oh,
yep.
Man.
It's just robotic. I couldn't be bothered with it at all.
Oh man, I'm so emotional. This man finally did it.
Aye. And he took about 4 or 5 shotguns to the face and kicked out of them all. And
right.
people...
Hulk Hogan-esque.
That match almost made James Boyd cry in the building.
No, he did.
Some of that was too much, but Gargano was involved in, I think, probably the greatest NXT match ever.
I agree.
When he took on, I don't know if you agree with this, when he took on Almas.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, and that's the crazy thing. We all have different ones that we think are the best.
Yeah. And they all seem to involve Gargano.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Roman.
I like the first Ciampa match as, I think it's maybe the greatest WWE match of all time. Not the Cruiserweight Classic one. The other one.
Right.
The one
New Orleans. You said you're going Roman, Ricky?
I'm going Roman. I'm going to go Roman.
When you look at Roman and you look at, like, all the Royal Rumbles he's won, all the world titles that he's won, all the WrestleManias he's headlined, great matches. And you know what's funny? I'm like giving the guy praise. I don't even think, and this is going to sound controversial, I don't think Roman Reigns is a very good wrestler personally. But, you know, the Brock Lesnar match, the John Cena, well, not really. The
AJ matches.
The AJ Styles match.
AJ Styles. I'm a big fan of this is random, but he had a last man standing match with Big Show, and it was fantastic.
That match is good.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of really great matches. They're not on the same level as the Johnny Gargano matches, but they were seen on a much higher platform. It's tough, man. I think I'm going to go Johnny Gargano. It's for the decade, though. Because it's for the decade, I think I've got to go Roman Reigns. Head to head, I think I'd take Johnny Gargano always, but when you frame it in the decade, I think I do have to go Roman.
If I chose Ciampa based on his peak, then, and I know this is still in its infancy, but this tribal chief stuff, that's a peak that hardly any wrestler will ever reach. So I have to take that into account, and I'm going for Roman as well.
Well, I was going for Roman as well too. So
to me, Roman's peak was that week where he beat up Sheamus and those dudes. Remember that time?
Do not sully the League of Nations. That is not allowed on this podcast.
Nah, when he beat up Sheamus, I was like, they finally fixed it. They got it right. They got it right with Roman, and then the next week it was done. But that 1 week peak was so high.
Next up, we have Hiromu taking on Charlotte Flair.
Oh, okay. So I mean, to me, this is easily Hiromu Takahashi, no questions asked.
Yeah, I second that.
And I know that might sound crazy to people that like Charlotte, but I think it's 100% accurate.
Okay.
I don't think it's crazy because as much as I love Charlotte, there's been a lot of meh things that she's been involved in. I know the stuff with Sasha was great, the stuff with Asuka, even the stuff with Becky and Ronda was excellent. Forgetting that WrestleMania match and how all that played out. But there's a lot of times where when she's not really involved, as a lot of the women are, when she's not involved in a title feud, she's not really doing anything of note. So I don't really have an issue with Hiromu here. And even if we did, Clive, I think you might go Charlotte.
Yes, I will be.
But I mean,
is there any point?
No, Rich also goes Takahashi.
Of course he did.
Well, I mean, Hiromu's like a once in a lifetime talent. And you know what? So is Charlotte. So is Charlotte. She is. And you know what? Charlotte is fantastic. I think that the last year or so that she was working, it is. She gets sometimes she does get underrated. She's really good. It's just Hiromu's at a higher level than Charlotte.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. I dropped out the call somehow.
Oh, we thought you were here. Hiromu Takahashi is really, really, really special. And he has some of the craziest, greatest matches that are just out there. And even when they sent him on an excursion to Mexico, and usually guys go on excursion and they don't do shit. And him and Dragon Lee had one of the greatest feuds of the decade.
Right, literally getting 5-star matches on excursion.
Yeah, those matches and they hold up. They literally changed wrestling. A lot of the high flying that we're seeing right now is directly influenced by the Dragon Lee Hiromu Takahashi matches in Mexico. And a lot of people don't know that, but that series, aside from the matches between and obviously Omega Okada's up there, but aside from Tanahashi Okada for a long feud, no other long feud has produced as many classic matches as Dragon Lee and Hiromu, and they've been doing it for the whole decade. Even this past year, they had one of the top matches of the year. And Hiromu does it with everybody. every single guy that he carries, he makes like that he wrestles, he brings them to a whole new level and makes them so much more than they actually are. And he's been doing it for like 6-7 years. He's also the biggest junior star in Japan and has been for the majority of the decade. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, if you also want to look at this year, the match with Ospreay at Wrestle Kingdom, the match with Ryo Lee in February. Then you come back from the pandemic. He's in the New Japan Cup beating heavyweights. He's getting an IWGP title match against Evil in the summer. Just totally elevated himself and is definitely really hitting even a higher peak than he has been hitting.
It is a little unfair that he has like these super junior tournaments that he gets to compete in, whereas like maybe the women don't have that in America, but he'll go in and have 10 matches and they're 10 of the best matches of the year, and it's fucking unbelievable. Like, it's insane.
Oh, well, scandalous stuff, but a vote is a vote.
Right. Here we go. Next matchup. We have Chris Jericho versus Goto.
Who did go?
I can't remember the matchups.
Who did he beat?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Alright, there's been some questionable ones where I was like, alright, but Goto? Bro, I don't know if Goto should be anybody on this list.
Yeah, I don't know who he beat.
I think it was you that put him on.
No, we put him on, but it was because you guys asked us for 20, and I was like, yeah, he deserves the nod, but he doesn't deserve to win. Like, Charlotte would have fucked him up if they went head.
I can't remember who it was.
Sickening.
Right, so we'll move on to the next matchup, shall we?
Goto beat Nagata.
I don't remember.
No! That's wrong!
Oh my god. No. Yikes.
From WCW? No, that's funny. Wait, who do we have Goto? Oh,
Jericho. I mean,
it's Jericho.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's similar to the John Cena Ishii round, where there's direct parallels here. And in this case, Y2J is the Cena, and Goto, who has a lot of similarities in his career to Ishii, same situation. The only difference is, if Ishii had ever been given the opportunities Goto had been given earlier in his career, that man would be a superstar right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's Chris Jericho.
Okay.
Right, last matchup. I think we know how this is going as well.
Yep.
Kenny Omega. Shall I just put his name down now as the winner? Bailey.
Wait. This is the whole thing?
That's the round of 32.
This is the last one, yeah.
Will Ospreay lost in the first round?
No, he went through.
No, he went through.
Oh, my bad. I apologize.
He was against Tessa Blanchard.
Oh, okay. Disregard. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so I take Kenny Omega.
Bailey had an excellent 2015 and an excellent 2020, but Kenny's been consistently very good throughout those 5 years. So I've got no qualms picking Omega at all there.
Yeah, this doesn't need to be up for debate whatsoever.
Did we get through this first round with less controversy than you guys had during the 64 round?
Just wait until you find out who Tessa Blanchard's eliminated, and then come back to us.
Who does she eliminate?
You'll have to listen tomorrow on the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show.
I don't think I wanted her to go through though. I'm cutting this conversation off as quickly as I can, and that concludes the final 32. Hello, this is the ghost of Christmas and podcasting past here. Just didn't want to interrupt the natural flow of the conversation I'm having with the guys from KISS and the guy from the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show called Ricky. So I thought I'd just splice this in, give you a wee plug, take us into the next episode next week. This has been the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, part of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where you can find other shows such as One Nation Radio, of course Keepin It Strong Style, Grown Men Watch This Shit, Great Match Generator, Grave Consequences, 8-Bit Suplex Podcast and All Things Elite.
go to the podcast app of your choice or Apple Podcasts and give us a nice 5-star review. And head over to socialsuplex.com, press subscribe, and you'll get all those podcasts as well as any columns that we do sent directly to your email inbox. If you check out the show notes on the pod, the thing that does the podcasts, you know, the thing I'm talking about, there are links there to the Pro Wrestling Tees where you will find our t-shirts, links for how you can donate to the page, to the show, to the God, this is an after the fact recording and I'm still mucking up the audio. You know what to do. Donate to us and give me a webcam. Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group is where you can find us, and we are at Ricky and Clive on Twitter. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this. Hot takes are plenty, and after being recorded, people were not angry. People were not happy, including me, mostly me, for next week's episode, so stay tuned for some horrendous hot takes. I've been Clive, and we have been the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, partnering with Kiss. Hope you have a good week and a good Christmas and all that shit. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Podcast. We'll see you next time.